Alright guys, so now I want to show you the useful skill of how to solder two wires together. This is a very useful skill if you're ever working on cars or if something breaks in your house and you want to try to fix it. A lot of times it involves working with wires, and if you try to fix something, you normally have to cut something, or if there's a damaged wire, replace it. So this is a very useful skill in the real world and also in this class. A lot of times our battery snaps will just break right off, and you're going to have to try to fix that or replace that. So to get started, obviously you're going to have a wire, and this is encased in plastic. So what we want to do is expose the metal underneath, because what I'm going to show you how to do is how to join two separate pieces of wire together to make it into one longer wire. So as you can see, this one, it has a little bit of the metal sticking out, but we want to give ourselves a long piece of metal sticking out so that we can really work with it. So first thing you need to do is look really closely, and it's not going to show up on this camera, but there's text on this piece of wire that tells me all the information about it. So I can see right now, and it says to me AWG 22, which tells me this is a 22 gauge wire. And the reason that's helpful, because I can go over here to my wire cutters, and I can know that right up here it has different numbers signifying gauges. So if I go all the way up, it only goes to 20, which is the closest to 22. So I'm going to go to the very topmost one and clamp it down and kind of move it around in a circular motion, pull down, and it pops right off, and it exposes all this stranded wire underneath. I'm going to do a little bit more than that. I want to give myself more than that. But once again, going kind of like a circular motion. You don't want to pull too hard or rough, because you could end up damaging some of the strands of the wire and pulling them off, and then it won't conduct as much electricity. But I want to give myself about that much, and I already did that same thing to another wire over here. But once you strip two wires, what I always like to do is kind of twist them. So right now I'm pinching really tight on the right and twisting on the other side, so that this metal, it's all stranded and it's easy for it to separate. But if I twist it all together, it looks like one solid wire. But if I want to join two metals together, the best way to do it is to actually make an X like this, and then twist them together. So I just twist them together and try to make it look like it's one single wire. So once I do that, right now, if I were to put a current going through the one side of this wire, it would travel through to the other side. But what we want to do is solder these two together to ensure that we will not have to worry about this getting damaged again. So if I take some solder in my soldering iron, and if I heat this up nice and hot and start applying the solder right next to it, I'm ensuring that this isn't going to break. So right now I kind of just made up a quick jimmy rig to keep this off the ground so I don't burn the table or anything. So I'm putting a decent amount of solder. You don't need to overkill it or put so much that it's sticking out in odd places. You just want to give it a nice coating to make it look shiny and just cover the whole thing. So right there, that's looking pretty good. Put my soldering iron back in its case. And then the last step is that right now this is completely exposed. So the step that you would probably do, most people would do at this point, would just be cover this in electrical tape. And that's a good idea. It works alright. But electrical tape isn't really designed to hold things for long periods of times. It's kind of more of a temporary fix. So what we have instead is we have this stuff called heat shrink that we can slide on, which is right here what I have. It's just this plastic tubing that when we apply heat to it, it's going to shrink down. So if we slide it over our connection that we just made between the two wires, so that it looks like this right now, you can't see anything, and then if we apply heat to this, it's going to shrink down and hold on to this real tight and never slip off. or cause us any problems. So we have a air gun that looks like this right here that just blows out heat. It's got an element at the front that gets really hot and it just blows out heat. So if you just turn this on and blow it on here for about a good 10 seconds, it's going to shrink this down and make this tight, and we'll have a solid connection. So I'll do that real quick. It does get really hot, so you're going to want to keep your hands away from it. Right now my fingers are getting pretty hot, but I can see it shrinking down real tight to the wires, and it looks like it's pretty much done. So right here now I have a wire that's firmly held together. We soldered it so there's a good electrical connection and there's nothing exposed, and this isn't going anywhere. So this is a solid, awesome way to join two different wires together.